Good evening to everyone and welcome back to the day 6 of phase 3 for the PhD coursework at GNLU. Today we have with us Professor R K Singh, who is an acknowledged researcher, a renowned academician and an academic administrator. He is Dean of Research, Development and Industrial Liaison, Professor of Civil and Environmental Engineering Department at the NORTHCAP University, Gurugram. He has been awarded by JSPS, that is Japan Society for Promotion of Science, postdoctoral fellowship by the Japanese government. He's also a recipient of several awards, some of which are the Best Research Paper Award by Secretary General, International Water Supply Association, IWWA, 1996, Glory of India Gold Medal conferred by the International Institute of Success Awareness, New Delhi in 2012, Bharat Jyoti Award and Certificate of Excellence, and Siksha Ratan Award awarded by the India International Friendship Society, New Delhi, to name a few. He also has over 125 research papers in his name published in various reputed peer-reviewed journals and conference proceedings, and has also authored of 5 books. Professor Singh has also completed many research projects funded by institutions like USIEF, USA, GTZ, Germany, JSPS, Japan, UNESCO, New Delhi, SNV, Netherlands, to name a few. We welcome you, sir, and look forward for a very enriching and insightful sessions. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Shubhi Trivedi. And thanks a lot to Dhanya madam, Shobhlata madam.
Sir, Shubhi is not a doctorate. She is commencing her doctorate work.
So she will inspire to get
her PhD.
Yeah, she will inspire to get in future. So
yeah, sure.
Yeah, okay. So
thank you.
So I shall start my interaction and discussion for a well-defined topic which is already given to me: how to convert thesis into a research paper. So I hope that in next 1 hour or 1.5 hour interaction which we are going to have, the students will learn many things which I am going to talk about, and they will make use in their future research activities. So with this, I have planned my presentation in number of consolidated PowerPoint slides, which I shall be discussing one after the other. And I shall be sticking to this topic, though this area is very broad and I can take up so many things related to this, because I am here heading the Dean of PhD research also for all 4 schools: School of Engineering, School of Management, School of Law, and School of Applied Sciences. And so nearly 200 students are there who are pursuing their PhD here. I am responsible to look after entire PhD program, right from admission till the award of the PhD degree. So I am passing through all the processes which happens in the PhD related activities. So on that I can have a number of interaction by which a student can be benefited in the times to come in GNLU. Today I shall stick to thesis, to how to convert the thesis to a research paper. Actually, while we get involved in the research activities, so these are the different processes which we pass through while we write a PhD thesis. And PhD thesis is the effort of number of years, sometime 3 years, sometime more than that, 4 to 5 years, and sometime as long as 7 years also the UGC guidelines permits to complete the PhD. So so the thesis is the final outcome of the PhD research activities. So most of the time students confine themselves to write their research papers parallelly once their research topic is approved. And for example, in my university, it is mandatory for the student to have 2 research paper at least in the Scopus index or the journals listed in the Web of Sciences. Then only they are permitted to write their PhD thesis. So that is the bare minimum requirement to write a PhD thesis. But it varies from university to university. These guidelines are different from the private and the state and the central universities. So my talk will be in general. If students are willing to write their research papers during the course of their research activity, that is also a good idea, because by the time they complete their work, they are having a good number of research papers to support their research thesis. And so whenever we conceive the idea of doing a research work in certain broad areas, and we first identify a broad area. In the law, it can be IP, and it can be international legislations, or it can be national legislations. Parallelly, any other thrust area, whether it is related to management, maybe related to decision science, in the engineering, in the applied sciences. So the broad area may differ from school to school. So under the broad area also, we select a particular focus area in which we are going to pursue our research activities. So during the first year, mostly students carry out their coursework, and the coursework also varies from university to university. Some of the universities 9 credit minimum requirement, some places it is more even. And that is these caps which I'm talking is the bare minimum requirement, but it can be even more than that. And the research activities are always the relative terms, and the quality in the research activity is a relative term. And since the PhD degree is awarded, it is not like master degree or UG degree that you do the number of credits, number of courses, and at the end you will get a degree. But the difference between this degree and the PhD degree is awarded, and the awarding requirement should be met by the students. And those guidelines are well listed among the university rules regulations related to PhD. And those criteria need to be fulfilled once a student decide to write their PhD thesis. Writing the thesis is a the chapters are being placed like this, which I have displayed in this article, in this slide, starting from introduction. Then while we write the introduction, these are the heads we follow: summary of proposal, or the research questions, and then literature review, why and how, and found whole, look for, debates, and then literature on topic, literature on method, theoretical approach. So in the literature review is the most important part of any research activity, because that also identify the research gaps on which we are going to do the PhD work. And during the literature review, we also identify the different research objectives. So, and then we write the research hypothesis, and then we write the research objectives. So mostly while we write, go for a we start the PhD work. So there our research proposal is approved. And normally we go for 3 to 4 objectives as a whole in the entire research activities. So ideally, every student should have at least one research paper published on every research objective in order to have a good PhD thesis. So suppose you have a 3 research objective, so you must have a 3 research paper published in a good reputed journal in your area. These days, the ranking of the research journals has become very important, because your citation index and your RG score, your Google Scholar score, all these things help you later to get a particular job nationally or internationally in academia or in research activities. So, so here this topic sounds as if you have completed your thesis and you are willing to convert that thesis in a research paper. But vice versa is also important these days, because the world is competitive. And if you are having research papers during the course of your research activity, it is a better, I mean to say. And since in Indian UGC guidelines, we also upload the research thesis on the Shodh Ganga. So then it should also meet the plagiarism requirement. So your similarity index should be less than 10% or so for the entire thesis work. So this is a very challenging work. So even those research papers which are published before and you are converting them in the thesis chapters, they should also not have the similarity index. So it becomes challenging for the students to write the chapters of the PhD thesis. So this is a little old trend, writing the research paper once you complete your PhD thesis. The latest trend is you need to have the research paper during the time of your research activities. So that is a very important. As I said, the minimum 3 research objectives you have in your research thesis. So you need to have 3 research paper before you are going to write your PhD thesis. But here I will also help to discuss how to convert the thesis in the research paper if you have already written. But these days options are also there. For example, my students who write their PhD thesis, I ask them to get it published in the form of book rather than writing the research paper, because they write the number of research paper during the course of their research activity itself. So I motivate them to write a book out of it, so that the entire literature get published in the form of book. So that is also an idea. So not only converting a research thesis into a research paper, but also possible to get entire research thesis published in the form of books. But once we take such decisions, it needs a lot of efforts, and sometimes it takes a year time to convert a thesis in a proper book, because thesis is a text which is written in a particular form applicable for a PhD research thesis. But if you are giving a shape of book, then you have to entire things you have to put in a different layout so that it should sounds and looks like a book. Same thing is for the research paper also. So if you are converting the entire research thesis in a research paper, then also you have to do a lot of efforts and get it published in the form of research papers. So literature review is the component of your PhD thesis, and literature review is also the component of your research papers. But this literature review will not be same as the literature review for the research papers, because writing a research paper will be even more focused than the research thesis. So in the subsequent slide, I will also discuss all these things where these things differs. Methodology is a very important component of PhD work, and it varies from topic to topic. But while we decide the methodology, the first question we ask is how we are going to carry out our research activities. So selection and access, human subjects review, ethics, statement, cost and fundings, research design, research procedures, kind of data collection procedures. All these things are need to be decided in the methodology. And sometimes we also use a very high memory softwares and a computing facility, soft computing facility, depending upon the nature of the problem. Sometimes we go with the survey method. Sometimes we generate the primary data by the going on the site, selecting the samples, testing those samples in the laboratories, or the sample collections in the sociology area with the help of questionnaires. All these things are the part of methodology. So methodology, while we are going to decide, we should ask ourselves how we are going to carry out our research activities, and then we are going to answer ourselves, and then we are going to list down those answers in the form of practical application forms for procuring the primary data. Sometimes we also procure the secondary data with the different government agencies. For example, if we are working on the environmental related issues, we can get that data from Central Pollution Control Board, where the government of India already spends billion and billion of dollars for the air quality data, for water quality data, for the groundwater data, for surface water data. So all those information and data can be used that become a part of methodology. Sometimes we use the satellite imageries for the spatial and the temporal modelings. So we also try to get those imageries through the various agencies, nationally or internationally. Many a time students approach with the NASA to get the satellite imageries for a particular time and duration, and then use the different software techniques for the spatial and the temporal modelings, and then carrying out the methodology. So methodology is a part by which we perform our functions. And preliminary data, then what kind of the preliminary data may be required. And all these data requirements sometimes needs the government fundings also, because procuring the data is not an easy task. Reaching on the sites, and then standard procedure need to be followed in the procurement of those information and data. Sometimes we face challenges, lot of challenges related to the regulatory authorities or the sensitivity of those information and data. We may get, we may not get also. So all these things are challenge related to the research activities, and they are the part of methodology. So while we are writing at a thesis level, then also these things will be written. While you are going to write in a research paper, then also these things are to be written. Only there will be a difference between two, which I shall discuss how these things are going to differ. The statements of limitations, alternative weaknesses, what your research will do. So in the research activity, normally we claim that we have developed certain things which has been not being done before, or which is a extension of certain things which is being already being done, and for that is going to be for the well-being of the society for which we are researching. So the research outcomes are going to be very important, and there need to be a tangible benefits to the society with those research outcomes. What are the other alternatives, weaknesses? So while we are going to give the recommendations for the future research works, so in the pre-final chapters, all those things need to be listed out. And research in the area of law as well as in the area of medicine is a more challenging these days. No doubt in engineering and other branches it is easy, because we do certain kind of simulation and modeling and able to publish easily. But generating some good research element in the area of medicine and in the area of law is really challenging. So that is the reason, even in my university, I always talk with the research candidate in the School of Law, and generating the research element in these areas, because LLB degree earlier itself used to be a big degree to carry out a profession. But these days people are going also for masters, LLM, then after that they are going also for PhD. But earlier there was a time when people in medicine and people in legal profession, they hardly used to go for PhD. At the most they go for masters. So doing contributing some knowledge in the research domain of medicine and law is really challenging for the research scholars. So and because it is a more challenging, reason being you need to have the research outcomes which need to be published these days, because these days the research activity in the bogus journals, what I say, the journals which are not listed in good publishing companies are not being recognized. So that is the wastage of time if we keep targeting this kind of journal for the publications. So if really you want to boost your career at an international and national platform, you need to have a very good research publications, which need to be listed, if not in Nature, then at least in the Scopus journals or the Web of Sciences journal, or those journals which are having high international index and the citation index. And moreover, these days the research scholar also, they get registered themselves on a Google Scholar, ResearchGates, and various other platforms where they can keep uploading their research work time to time, and that develops their RG score and the citation index. So these days in the academic interviews, people normally they ask this kind of the questions: what is your H index? What is I index? What is the citation index of a particular journal? So these type of the uh, uh, data are required to make a good biodata in the academia as well as in the research. So this has become these days more and more challenging. So even people need not to read your biodata, but they can find out your standing in the research domain by seeing the global indexing. For example, last month, the Stanford University has published the top 2% scientists of the globe without asking your name and without asking your data. They take those information from the public domain and then do the indexing. So that indexing is going to help you and tell the rest of the world that where you stand in the research. So these kind of the challenges are going to be there in the times to come for all the researchers, not for the sake of doing the research, but the research should be a quality research. So these are the components which we normally work on while we plan to write a PhD thesis or going to write a research paper. Thesis have the following characteristics. It needs to meet certain academic requirements, and then since the thesis is reviewed by a select committee members, and this committee members is formed by the university and the research cell. Sometimes there used to be the list of 10 members, and then the thesis goes to 2 members. For example, in my university, one thesis goes abroad and one thesis goes to Indian examiners. And after their satisfactory review comments only, then the Viva Voce takes place for the award of the PhD thesis. Sometimes it goes to 2 Indian examiners. So it depends from university to university. Many a times the supervisor need to give the list of the 10 research top research people who are going to review your thesis. And then the chapters. The chapters are nothing but the outcome of your research objectives, which are written in the form of chapters. Lengthy, no word limits, table of contents, lengthy research of literatures, plague report, description and copies of tools used, all findings presented in the verb sentences, grammars. All these things are the important component of PhD research thesis. And moreover, once you so it is a document varying from 200 pages, even more than that, 300, 400 pages, depending upon the nature of the thesis and number of chapters in the thesis. So these are the peculiar components which are going to be there, and then it will be examined by the reviewers, Indian examiners as well as the foreign examiners. And even the examiners have the right to reject the thesis, or if there is a right to accept the thesis with major revisions. Even there is a right to accept the thesis with minor revision. Even there is an examiner has a right to accept the thesis as it is. So these are the 5-6 places where he has a chance to tick, but he ticks these points only after reading your thesis word by word, line by line, and looking the research element you have contributed, and then write the complete review reports on which the candidate is supposed to work later. And once the examiner is satisfied with the review process, then only the date of the Viva Voce is decided. And so once the Viva Voce is over satisfactorily, then the thesis is awarded. So writing thesis is a very challenging task for the candidates. And these days, since the similarity index is a desirable less than 10%, 10% is a desirable because sometimes there are certain things which can't be reworded in its own word, certain terms. So that is the reason 10% is permissible for the standard abbreviations, standard words, standard definitions, standard things which cannot be altered. 90% of the thesis should be in your own words. So while you are going to write a thesis, it takes years time to write the chapters, and then those chapters should be free from all sort of a similarity index, and then finally it takes shape of a PhD thesis. And the most important thing is the research contribution, which examiners are going to look into, and based on that they are going to examine your thesis, whether it is a through or it's need major revision or it doesn't need any revision. And sometimes even certainly most all the theses are written in English in India, so you need to also be good in English writings. So so all these things become a primary requirement of writing a PhD thesis. Now if we come to research papers, so while we are going to write a research papers, so the very first thing we decide the journal, in which journal you want to communicate your research paper. So you have to go on the journal's website and then download the guideline for the authors. Sometimes it is a 10-15 page documents, and then you need to read those documents, and then need to arrange the layout of your paper in the requirement of that journal. Okay, so every journals have their own style of writing the research papers. They have also the limitation of number of figures, number of tables, and sometimes the number of pages also. So all those things you have to follow, the font size, and then the style of writing the citation of the papers. Every journals have their own style. So once you decide a journal, then you have to go on the website of the journal and download the guideline for the authors, and then read those guidelines, and then put your material in the form and keeping those guidelines in mind. Otherwise, once your paper goes to editorial office, they will send it back. If you don't follow the format prescribed by the journal, maybe the editor will send it back after just glancing in few minutes. So this is a primary requirement. Sometimes editors read the abstract of your paper, and if finds your abstract is the entire error free, then only he decide to send the papers to the reviewers. So sometimes it goes to 3 reviewers, sometimes 2 reviewers, sometimes even more than that. And then you need to work on those reviewer comments, and then slowly it takes the publishable shape. So sometimes it takes even a year time, 1 year time also, to get the paper published. This I am talking about the good journals and the good research quality papers. So your paper is to be reviewed by the panel of blind reviewers. Why it is called blind reviewers? Because you might not be aware with the authors who has written the papers. Otherwise, people may approach that this is my paper. So the review process is, sometimes they ask you, give me the list of 10 people who are doing the research in those areas, but it is not necessary that they will send to the same people. They have already the pool of the people who have the expertise in those areas. So that is the reason it is called as a blind review process. It goes to the people whom you might not be knowing, so that one cannot approach to them for any kind of favor or any kind of things. So that process is called as a blind review process, and that is being very important, and it need to be done very honestly also. Many of you might be the reviewers of certain journals and might be reviewing the papers now and then. So the review process is a very important process. And so once your papers is rejected and sent back, so you should not get discouraged. It is sometime it happens sometimes the major comments comes. So during the course of this process, the quality of your research papers improves. Many a time your paper may not get accepted in the first chance. Even you have taken care of lot of care in writings. Still, the major comments come. Sometimes it get rejected. Sometimes it doesn't come under the purview of the research area in which you are pursuing your research. So you should not get offended. You should keep patience and then look for the other journals to communicate. So publication, research publication is a time-consuming process. Quality research publication is a time-consuming process, and in the entire process, you need to have a lot of patience to deal with the editors, to deal with the reviewer comments and all other things. And the reviewer comments, you should take it very seriously. Many times, if reviewer comments comes, means if you address those things properly, then the paper get published. Same thing is for the PhD thesis also. We should not feel offended when the review examiner comment comes or the reviewer comment comes. Rather than we should address them very properly. Sometimes they write many positive comments. For that also we need to be thankful, right? We are thankful for this. And those points where you need to do the improvements, you need to do the improvement as well. So all the research articles used to have number of sections. If I say the section is starting from the abstract, starting from the title, then abstract, then the keywords, then the introduction, then the methodology, and then the data analysis, then the recommendations, conclusions, references. All these are the different components of research papers. And each and every component have their own importance. So first thing, you have to follow the style of the research particular journal which you have selected to communicate your paper. At the same time, you have to also keep in mind the quality of all these sections. So writing introduction is a very challenging process in the research paper because most of your cross citations are being done in the introductions. There only the problems are being defined. There only the gap analysis are being done. So writing introduction is a very important. Same thing is for methodology, and each and every aspect you have to be very honest. You need to follow all sort of ethical values which are important in the research domains. You have to follow the word limits for the different components. You have to follow the manuscript format prescribed by the journal. You have to follow the literature review process as per the general requirements. You have to put all the cross references based on the general requirement. And these days there are also the small software which are going to help you out how to put the cross references while you are preparing your manuscript. Sometimes it also helps in the Google Scholar. Google Scholars, from there also you can get the reference styles. So because while you are putting the material in a proper referencing format, the authors, then the year of publications, then the title of the research paper, then the volume number, page number, etc. So each and every time you need not to type it in a particular style, but there are the softwares which there you can take the help. So it will save a lot of your time because so much of time goes in the writing of cross references and references. So for example, Chicago style, if it is being followed directly, take from the Google Scholar. From there, you can also check the authenticity of the paper as well as which you are citing in your thesis or in the research papers. At the same time, you can take the ready-made format from there, which is applicable for that particular journal. So it will save a lot of time for you. And that time you can utilize in your research work. So while you are researching, you need to work smartly. You need not to spend so much of time in the places where it is not desirable. You need to compartmentalize your time and put your time to those places where it is more desirable. For those things which are already tools are available, softwares are available, make use of those things so that it can save your time and then spend that time in the research activities. So literature view, and then selected findings presented. Selected findings are very important, which of your research work, which are most commonly used question in your viva voce during the time of defending your PhD thesis. And then also the different future recommendations which you are giving in these areas. So selecting a particular thrust area is very important, because there you are not going to develop a new knowledge, but you are also giving the direction where the new knowledge is going to emerge by the other researchers which are going to come after you, because you are also going to supervise your PhD thesis thereafter. And you are going to also research, you are going to contribute in the knowledge domain. And then the grammar related things. These days grammar, most of the systems are embedded, so this is not a big challenge for you, but still there was a time when it was a challenge. These days everything is embedded in your software. Even the Microsoft Office itself have all these things where you can take into. So you see that those elements which we are writing in the thesis, we are also writing in the research papers. Only the challenge is there that you have to reduce the size of the thesis. So your thesis is in 300 pages, you have to reduce that in 12 pages or so. So it is a very challenging task. If you are writing a 300 pages into 12 pages, so you imagine how much efforts you have to put. Or at the most 18 pages or 15 pages. This is the normal standard size of a research paper. You know? So this is going to be very challenging. Time also you keep in mind. Sometimes if I it is so I have time, nearly 1 hour more, so that's good. Converting thesis to a journal article is a complex process, but it is not impossible. A thesis is a document of academic nature, being therefore more elaborate in content. A journal article, however, is short in length, highlight key points, and more succinct format. Adapting a thesis for conversion into a journal article is a time-consuming and intricate process that can take you away from other important work. So I suggested these days, see, normally we need not to wait that we shall complete the research work, then only we should write. Second year onwards, you can start writing research paper. First year I can understand, because first year you need to focus in your pre-PhD coursework. But the second year onwards, even the papers are written on the review type paper. So if you do a exhaustive literature review where you are going to identify the research gaps which you are going to carry out for next 2-3 years, so on that also you can write a research paper which can be review in nature. So so the review research papers can be written, and then when you develop the research hypothesis and the research objectives. So to me, every research objective is going to take the shape of PhD chapters while you are going to write a chapter. So to me, every objective should lead minimum one paper, or even can be more than one papers. So if you have 3 research objectives in your entire PhD thesis, at least you should have 3 research papers before you write the PhD thesis. This is what I suggest to my research scholars. So, but it is up to you. What is things being followed in your university is fine. And sometimes even it can be more than that. So if you catch hold the have a good research tactics, you can publish even more. Sometimes even students are having 10-12 research papers. One of my students these days working in one university in Malaysia, he is already having nearly 35 research papers, even though he has not written his PhD thesis in past 3 years. So it is easy in the practical fields where you are doing the simulation and modeling. You can do the research publication fast. May not be possible in all the areas, I accept that. But minimum 2 to 3 research paper target should be there for the research scholars. So identify the best fitted journal for your work. Ensure that your article is within the journal's aim and scope. Check the journal's recommended structure and reference style. All these things you will get while you download the author's guideline. As I said, when you decide to write a research paper, very first thing you should do is go on the journal website and download the research author's guideline, and then read that author's guideline and then prepare your manuscript accordingly. So if you have a 300-page PhD thesis and the journal is telling you cannot publish more than 12 pages in an article, so very first thing you have to do is you have to download the author's guideline and you have to read that, so that you have to put those material in that format. Shorten the length of your thesis. Treat your thesis as a separate work. So if you have a soft copy, you save and make another copy where you are going to write that thesis in the papers, because you have to delete many things. Anything which you have written like a thesis, if you are going to delete, you will not be comfortable in doing that. So thesis you keep separately. As I said, the thesis can be also published in the form of books, which you can do anyway. But thesis you keep separately, and then you prepare a separate file where you are going to do the post-mortem on that thesis to convert that thesis into the research journals. So treat your thesis as a separate work and paraphrase, but do not distort meaning. So while you are deleting the things or condensing the things, say 100 pages in one page, so the meaning should not be distorted. Whatever you are going to convey, it should not be distorted, because anyway you have to carry out some meaningful research contribution in those areas. So that thing you have to keep in mind while you are converting in the research paper. Select and repropose parts of your thesis, and reformat the introduction as an abstract. So abstract in a thesis, maybe sometime it is a 50 to 100 page or so. And that you have to write half a page. Shorten the introduction to 100 or 150 words. Now, can you imagine anything which you have written in 50 pages, you are converting in 1/4 of a page? So, or 100 or 150 words, it is going to be a challenge. At the same time, you are not also deleting anything, but you are conveying all the message. Many a time, editor only read your abstract. Sometimes people read the abstract and read the conclusion and hurriedly see the other pages. Even sometimes the reviewers also do the same thing. And based on that, he decide his comments if he does not have much time. So writing the abstract, which is in the 150 words which you have written in the thesis, 50 or 100 pages in the introduction, is a challenging task. It's because you are not going to miss out anything. So there you are going to research words, selection of words. The important words should not be missed out in the abstract. The important things need not to be missed out into the abstract, but maintain key topics to the reader's attention. So many a time people read the abstract only, they do not go the entire work. But from there, they are able to understand your entire research paper, or entire PhD thesis. And use the introduction and discussion as the basis for the abstract. Use the introduction and discussion. Discussion goes in the final part of the thesis before conclusion, or sometimes conclusion and discussion and conclusion goes together. So the introduction and the discussion should be the basis of the abstract. So now you can understand how much the introduction and the discussion is important. Because introduction and discussion, you are going to put each and everything which is there in your PhD thesis. Rest is the arrangement of the chapters. So these challenges remain there while you are going to reduce them in the research papers, because there only the bigger document you are reducing to the smaller document, but you are not losing any essence out of it. You are keeping everything intact. Modify the introduction. If your thesis has more than one research questions or the hypothesis, which not all relevant of your paper, consider combining your research questions or focusing on one for the article. Use previously published paper, at least 3 from the targeted journal. As I said, other than downloading the author's guidelines, you should also take 3 sample research paper from that journal. That will help you very much in writing your research paper. So this means you are not going to miss out how the research paper looks like. So at least download the 3 research papers from that journal where you are going to communicate your paper, read them, and see how he has written things, how he has written abstract, how he has gone for the selection of keywords, how he has written the introduction, how he has written the methodology, how he has gone for the data analysis, then the discussions, conclusion, referencing styles, layout of the figures, layout of the tables, appendices, abbreviations, all these things, ideas you will get from there. So other than author's guidelines, you should also download 3 minimum research papers and read them. This is the way you are going to ensure that your papers is not going to get rejected in the first sight of the editor. Editor will think twice before sending back your paper. So if you do this much meticulous planning before you write your research paper, then certainly it will go to reviewer. And many times, if you are good to take the reviewer comments, then your paper will be through, your paper will be published. And once a paper is published in a good research journal, then you have a style. Then you learn. But the first paper writing is a really tough process. And if you get past in that process, then in the lifetime you can write many good research papers. But if you follow the shortcuts, or if you don't obey these procedures, these things, then you will never learn to write a good research paper. That is for sure. So many a time, many people are, this is not the cup of tea for everyone, writing a good research paper. So you have to pass through a process which is a tough process. And but once you pass through that process properly, then you will be addicted writing good research papers, because it gives so much of satisfaction to you. So, and that will become your lifestyle, that and you will become a good researcher, you will become a good professor, and you will become a good supervisor for the future if you pass through these hard tasks. So then tighten the method sections, keep the discussion about your research approach short. Sometimes and these things editors are well able to understand. By reading few sentences, they can understand the depth of your research. And then they take the further decisions to go far. Use previously published paper, at least 3 from the target journal, already have said. Report main findings in the results, in the result section, and expose your main findings in the result section in concise statements. So that is the region. There is a limit on the number of pages also in the research papers. For example, a few years back, I was there in the King Khalid University. So if someone published a research paper in the Nature, then there was a research prize which used to be at least Indian rupees 6 lakhs. So this much research prize we used to get in that university. So that is the very good motivation factor for a good researcher. So, and moreover, government also gives a lot of funds for the project. So even if there is a good journal and they have certain processing fees. If I say, sometime it is as much as 50 to 60,000 Indian rupees. So we don't mind giving that money from the project because the journal is good. So we go for it. And similarly, if you are filing a patent, patent filing also required a lot of fees need to be paid. But if your patent is worth, then that sometimes these fees are as high. If you are filing a US patent, sometimes it is in lakhs, sometimes it is 50,000, sometimes it is more than 1 lakh. So all these things can be managed with the project money, project funds. And those universities who understand the meaning of this, they go for the international accreditations, they get the points based on this. So certainly the government is willing to spend on those things. So we are reaching close to 6. I shall also give the time to the students for the discussion and answers. Next few slides I will discuss in next few five or at the most 10 minutes, and then I shall also give you some time for asking the questions and for any sort of discussions. Discussion must be clear and concise. Begin by providing an interpretation of your results. Do not repeat your results in the discussion section, and situate the findings to the literature. Discuss how your findings expand our perspective. Briefly present ways in which future studies can build upon your work, and limit the number of references. Ideally, the references should not be more than 40 or 50. If it is a review paper, it can be 70 or 80 or close to 100. But the references should be quality and they should be latest, maybe for 1 decade or past 2 decades. So whenever you are selecting the paper, so suppose you are researching in year 2021, then you should take the oldest paper by 81 or so, but not beyond that. So focus for past 2 decades or so, or ideally past 1 decades. And there should be a quality research paper in that area. Don't cite the bogus papers. That will not enhance the quality of your research work. Journal limits the number of citations, so make sure sometimes to choose the most relevant and recent papers. That should be very important, and to format them correctly. And as I discussed, that the formatting is easy if you follow the Google Scholars. At least they give the cross-referencing in 5-6 different styles, and one of them will be the style which is certainly will be followed by a particular journal. So you will not be wasting time. Consider using the reference manager system like Mendeley to make your life easier. So the Mendeley can help you to go for cross-referencing, because this is a place where most of the time we spend. So you can save that time while you are writing a research paper or the PhD thesis. And quickly I have reached to the final slide, but nevertheless I can discuss, take time with you people. If you are willing to ask any question, any sort of things, so I shall give more and more time for the discussion and interaction with the students.
We can have question and answer, sir. After
Yeah, 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 yeah.
yeah. So any, I mean, Danya, you can put forth for any questions.
Yes, ma'am. Do we have any questions?
Sir?
Yeah, yeah.
Sir, actually, I don't have any doubt, but I missed the name of those guidelines that you were mentioning, Athar's guidelines. So can you tell me the spelling of the particular name?
Suppose you decided to send your paper to Israel Journal, or Taylor or Francis, है ना? So Taylor or Francis are है ना, is where these are the important publishers. So normally while those publishers should be reputed one, है ना? So suppose you decided Taylor and Francis, then go on the website of the Taylor and Francis, then go to the research area. Suppose you are doing the research work, say the intellectual property right, है ना? IPR. So that journal might be having a IPR section. You go to the IPR section. In that IPR also, suppose they are having 20 different journals in different thrust areas. So because IPR is also having different areas. So your work in which particular themes it is going to fit in. So go to that journal. So when you will go to that journal, on that website itself, there will be the different heads written over there. So the author guidelines will be the a document which will be there in the form of PDF, 10-20 page document which will be in the form of PDF. You download that document and read.
It will be for each and every journal, sir. That's what you said.
It is refer for each and every journals. So that will give you the clear-cut idea of how you are going to write your research paper.
Okay, sir.
Because they limit everything. There should be at least this many keywords. There should be, this should be the size of abstract. This should be the size of the paper. This should be the size of the font. This should be size of the figures. This should be the size of the tables, and so on. So all those things are the preliminary requirement. So once those guidelines 100% you are seeing, then only editor will see your paper. Otherwise, in the first seeing itself, he will send it back, writing that the journal's format is not being followed. Then you have to write everything again.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
Any other question?
And moreover, I have also shared my address. So this is not my first and final interaction with you people. Even in future also, if you would like to have any sort of discussion, any sort of help, I shall be happy to do that. I have also spoken to Professor Santa Kumar. He was my friend while he was working in Gurgaon. So we were colleagues together. So I have also spoken to him. Anytime, any sort of helps I can do to the research scholar, I shall be very happy to do that. So I have I will share this presentation with you people. In the first slide, I have my email ID and phone number, etc. So people can outreach me with the email address, and they can ask me anything in the future as well. Any sort of help, any sort of guidelines.
So the PhD department normally shares all these slides, all the presentations. From the PhD department, all material is being shared with the scholars.
From the PhD department?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Every resource person's share slides, reading material, everything is shared with the scholar, sir.
Okay, okay, that's very good. Yeah. So this presentation I will share with you people, and then you can share with the research scholars,
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
and so that they can outreach to me if any help they want in the future as well.
Sir, there is a question in the chat box. Shibam, do you want to unmute and ask her?
Sir, good evening.
Good evening, Subham.
Sir, I want to know about the problem of self-plagiarism and how it can affect uh, the articles which are produced out of the thesis or vice versa. Sir, could you kindly tell us about that?
Plagiarism, we also call it as a similarity index, is very important these days because to minimize the this similarity index while you are writing a book or a book chapter or a research paper, this is very important. So sometimes even the plagiarism of few words may be a big crime than one page plagiarism. For example, if you are taking some text as it is, which is in the form of theory, but if you are taking someone's important result and claiming this is your result, so those few words may be expensive for a research scholar because it is a link with the research ethics. So when a paper is published in the open access journals and people read it, so people from those areas who are expert, really they are able to understand what is your contribution. So sometimes a plagiarism of one line, if someone has taken as it is and claiming it is mine, which is being already being published by someone else, then this is a serious crime. But sometimes if you have taken some phrase or this phrase, but it is not an important result of anybody, but it is some important text which is a common and there is in public use and public domain. So it is just a percentage, and it will not impact much. But every journals has put a limit on it. Some journals keep it 5%, some but at the most top limit is 10%. For example, Einstein theory is there, so you cannot write the Einstein theory E is equal to mc square differently because it is Einstein theory and it is so well known. So it will come as a similarity index and it is acceptable also. So that is the reason in writing a research paper 10% is permitted because certain standard things cannot be reproduced. For example, same thing for the words also. Constitution word. Constitution is a constitution. You cannot have alternate words. So suppose 30 times it is appearing in your research paper or in your PhD thesis. So it will create a similarity index of 5%. That is acceptable. But if it is beyond that, then you have to rewrite in your own words so that the similarity index can be. And that is the reason you can improve your language skill, your writing skills. And this is the time when the research scholar learn most. If they are not going to learn at this stage, they will never learn in their life. If you are not going to learn how to write a research paper, then you will not have any other opportunity to do that. Neither you will have a time to do that. So you have to develop that interest right in this particular time phase so that you can enjoy that work throughout your life.
Thank you, sir. Sir, I have an additional question. Sir, suppose I write an article on a particular topic and I am using the same article in my thesis. Sir, my question is particularly about self-plagiarism. If I write something as an article and I use the same words or the same content in my thesis, would that be problematic? Would that constitute as self-plagiarism? And
this is the important thing. this what you said is called as a self-plagiarism. But self-plagiarism is also not allowed in the journals. Suppose you have written a research paper and then you are going to write a second research paper in that area itself, and you are also citing your research paper. So whatever the guideline is given by the journals, as per that, the self-plagiarism is also not allowed more than 10%. No doubt you can cite your paper, but in that process you have to remove the self-plagiarism, because if you are going to reproduce same thing, then there is no creation of new knowledge. That is a redundant knowledge you are putting in the public domain, which has no use. And if you are it is done 10 times same thing, means so it is of no use. So the meaning of research is you are bringing out some knowledge which is there for first time in public domain, and that is a unique knowledge. That is called as a research element, isn't it? And as per the UGC guideline, in our PhD thesis also the self-plagiarism is not allowed. That may be the reason your university might be following. First you write your PhD thesis, later you write your research paper, isn't it? So that there should not be a problem of self-plagiarism, because if you write a chapter and get published in journals, and then same thing you are going to write in PhD thesis, then it is going to be a self-plagiarism. And if you are uploading it on Sodh Ganga, and then this self-plagiarism will be reflected. So that is the reason some of the universities, they are emphasizing first you write your PhD thesis. Once your thesis is awarded, then you write your research paper. This is also a good idea, so that the student should be in less trouble. Otherwise, they are removing the same thing which they have done it before. Or the university should accept the self-plagiarism. Anything which you have got published as a research paper, the elaborated form of it can be converted in the chapter in the research thesis. For example, in my time when I did my PhD thesis in '96, this rule was not there. So whatever the research paper I have, 8-10 research papers, same thing I extended in the form of chapters and wrote my PhD thesis. Because that time this kind of the rules were not there. But now the new guideline says that there should not be also the self-plagiarism.
Understood, sir. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Good evening, sir. This is Amit Kura. Ask a question, sir.
Yeah, you are audible,
right,
please.
I wish to ask you a question with respect to this interaction between the author and the reviewer. And I speak from both sides because I review for a couple of journals, sir. And sometimes it so happens that I get an article to review on a subject on which I do not have a real expertise. So a couple of times I have politely declined, but they come back to say that, sir, we do not have any other person to review, and your areas are closest to this particular area, and please go ahead with the review. So then I am not in a position to actually decline that. So how can I do justice in that case to an author's article on an area which I do not really know? That's one thing. That's first question. And second question is that, so when I write myself and when the review comes back, sometimes I feel that the reviewer himself doesn't have much idea. So it's both linked to each other. And the comments are not really relevant to what I wish to say. And his comments actually are not very pertinent. And how to respond becomes a big dilemma. So what do we do in both these cases? That's my question.
This is a very good question. And see, suppose you have done your PhD 20 years before. And if you are a good researcher, then every time you are working with the number of research scholars and giving different research areas. And then you become a person who talks about the interdisciplinary research. For example, I have an engineering background, but I am interacting with you people as a lab. So I could have said that I don't have expertise, but research is research. Research means evolvement of the new knowledge. And as long as you can understand the evolvement of the new knowledge, this means you can justify the research, and you can also justify the interdisciplinary research. So for that reason, you need not to be the 100% expert in that area, because these days the time has come. Even if you see our new education policy, which has come this year, there a lot of importance is given on the interdisciplinary and multidisciplinary research. So if someone is say nanotechnology is a new area, but nanotechnology has a lot of dimensions. Not only it is a material creation in the form of nanoparticles, but it has also a history. So a person with the history background can also work on the nanotechnology, and then it has a lot of implications related to foreign rules and regulations about the material. So a person with the law background can also work on the nanotechnology. So as long as you can justify that this is the creation of new knowledge, this is a fine. You can accept. You can accept as a reviewer, and you can try. Once you are doing a review process, it is not necessarily that you are coming out only with the research comments which are related with the findings of the research, but you can also give the review in so many other dimensions. And 100% no reviewers give, which is being desirable all the times. So even if you adding 4 or 5 points which are contributing for the good improvement of the paper, then you should accept that work. And same thing for the second part of the question. So so suppose someone has given the time and honestly accepted, you have honestly accepted that I am not the expert. Still the request has come and you have accepted out of the generosity, and then you try to justify as much as possible. So that is a very good for the well-being of the society, well-being of a particular area. So we should accept in both the situation, to me. And a time comes so when you can speak on the research domain in every area. Suppose I am a dean of a PhD research. So I am also giving the direction to the law students, giving the direction to the management students, giving the direction to the engineering student, applied science students, how to do the good research. So that way I am doing good for the society, and I am happy and satisfied. Same thing is for any other good researcher. So that is a
yes.
Yeah.
Any other question?
I think there is no questions coming up.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah, you can end it.
Okay.
No questions coming up.
Okay. May I request Mr. Sajid to summarize the session and deliver the vote of thanks? Are you there? Ma'am, I think he's not there in the meeting.
We can do it ourselves.
Okay.
Sir, on behalf of GNLU and all the PhD students, it's a very big thank you to you for spending your time, your energy, and sharing your knowledge with us. Thank you very much, sir. You may remain a member of GNLU, and we'll always be indebted to you for all the time that you have spent with us. We have got your communication. We'll see that it is reaching the scholars. Anybody can contact you. Thank you for being there, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, madam. Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you, sir. And so CV itself is very, very motivating, inspiring thing for them, because 125 publications. Thanks a lot, sir, for accepting our invitation and being there. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah.
Thank you, madam. Thank you, everyone. Convey my regards to Dr. Shanta Kumar.
Sure, sir. Sure, we'll do
And
that.
the full family of GNLU. My best wishes to all research scholars. And please feel free to interact me anytime. I shall be very happy to give any direction, any help to the university system in the research domain. Thank you all for joining. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Yeah.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.